Hello, and welcome to Frankenstein's podcast, where it is all about the monster. So, we're a podcast that discusses various forms of media that contains fictional creatures, beasts, aliens, and monsters from all corners of pop culture. I'm your host, Joe Praska.
And I'm your co-host, Khalid Hussein. What's cracking?
Cracking. I don't know how to respond to that question.
Yeah,
How are
I was
you?
trying to throw you off your game, keep you on your
succeeded.
toes. I'm great. Yeah. I'm great, man. I just got back to Minnesota. I'm gonna try and quarantine with the family for the rest of the duration. Got to see my nephew, which has been great, hanging out with him.
Aw. How old's your nephew?
He is about to be 1 on Monday, so really exciting over here. Real exciting times.
Oh, sounds super fun.
Yeah. So what's up with you, buddy? How are you doing?
Oh, also quarantining here in Minnesota too. Although I was quarantining in Minnesota long before you got here.
Yeah. You did it before. It was cool.
Doing a lot of hanging with the daughter who's just about 2, so similar age.
Aw, the little
Yeah.
bean.
Yeah. So anyway, Khalid, what are we discussing today?
Oh, we're talking about a certain master. A stairmaster? No, we're talking about a Beastmaster, and not just a Beastmaster, the Beastmaster, which I erroneously called the ultimate Beastmaster on the last episode, which you thankfully corrected me on. So this week I will be using the synopsis from our good friend Google. It's nice and lean. It doesn't tell you too much about the movie, but that's what we're here for. So chill. So the plot synopsis according to Google is that Dar, an ancient warrior with the ability to communicate telepathically with animal allies, sets out to stop the crazed plans of an evil high priest named Mayax and save his friends.
It was foretold by witches. It was conceived through sorcery. And it was to be destroyed by all that is evil. But the courage of one mortal saved it. And so, into an age of darkness, in a time of mysticism, sacrifice, and plunder, there came the only light, the Beastmaster. Born with the strength of a black tiger, the courage of an eagle, the power that made him more than any hero. More than any lover. He was lord and master over all beasts. He was the Beastmaster. Behold the wonder, the horror, the fantasy, the challenge of the one warrior they call the Beastmaster. Mark Singer is Dar, Tanya Roberts is Carrie, Rip Torn is Mayak, John Amos is Seth. Together they take us on a fascinating journey back into unexplored times. Conquer your fears. Face the unknown. And discover the incredible link between man, animal, and all that is phantasmagorical. In the world of Dungeons, Dragons, and Dar. The Beastmaster. The epic adventure of a new kind of hero.
That's right, Khalid. We are talking about The Beastmaster, which, for those of you listening, if you haven't seen, you should probably check it out because we will definitely be spoiling this movie as we discuss it. But it is available on Amazon Prime as of right now, so go give it a watch, spend 2 hours of your time, and then come back and listen to us. So you can pause right here and then come back if you'd like to. So Khalid,
Yeah, if you want to.
If you want to, yeah. Khalid, what'd you think of the movie?
I was hesitant because you kind of like a lot of stuff. Most people would say anything related to like fantasy and
I'm
sci-fi.
easy to please.
You're very easy to please, and it's what I both love and hate about talking about these things with you. But I will say this time, You were right on the money. This movie is equal parts like self-aware and oblivious to what it's doing. That I kind of dig it. It really really reeks of like Star Wars. Like let's do the Star Wars thing, even though this isn't Star Wars. This is a completely different setting and everything. But all the way down to the main character just looking like a buff Mark Hamill, that was like kind of jarring. So that was fun in that regard of like just seeing like the age old thing of like something was successful, so let's ape it shamelessly. And they did it in their own kind of fun way. The plot's ridiculous. You can tell that some of the bigger named actors really had a lot more control than they normally would on a production because of like the way that they were playing it. The animals were used just enough to not make me roll my eyes. A lot of cool action shots of that eagle, which I thought was a hawk until they called it an eagle. Yeah, I could go on, but I'll say I liked it. I liked it.
Right. 80s genre movies are just a special kind of like fun and weird. So this movie particularly is a type of fantasy known as sword and sandals. Kind of a sword and sorcery sort of offshoot, more akin to like the Conan the Barbarian type stories, Robert E. Howard, rather than kind of the more whimsical like Tolkien-esque fantasies. So in this you see a lot of like, oiled up, greasy, testosterone driven characters that are traveling like desert type settings. So you don't really see much forest traversing, which normally when you say fantasy you tend to think of like forests, I feel like. At least me. I don't know about you, Khalid.
Yeah, no, and then I looked it up, and it was like they kind of wanted to do that, like they wanted to like go to like Mexico and like all these other places that didn't just have a desert setting, but then they were like, that's super expensive. What if we just went like outside of Southern California and a little bit Vegas, and
Yeah.
it looks like that.
And it works, I guess, for what they're trying to do. So this movie was directed by Don Coscarelli, who is also famous for directing the Phantasm series, the cult classic Bubba Hotep, and John dies at the end.
J-Date.
And the film itself stars Mark Singer as the titular Beastmaster, Tanya Roberts, who most of you might recognize from That 70s Show, John Amos, an Emmy-nominated actor for the show Roots, and of course the legendary late Rip Torn.
R.I.P. Rip.
Rip Torn was easily a highlight of this movie for me.
Rip Torn is what kept me coming back to it, because there were a couple of times I had to tap out. Just I was trying to live tweet with you, so like I would like see something ridiculous, want to text it to you, and then I'd have to rewind it to see the next ridiculous thing, and that just turned out that proved to be more exhausting than I thought it would. So like I knocked out the first time I watched it, but man, like just thinking about Rip Torn's performance and knowing there was more to come, I was like, get me back in there, get me into that world.
I think the first text that you sent me when you started this was like, Rip Torn is in this?
Yeah, and apparently you told me that, and I like forgot, which I think that was like a gift from my brain, so I could be surprised by Rip Torn again.
That's pretty special.
Yeah.
So Rip Torn is one of the first characters that we see in the movie, and this is a piece of trivia, Khalid. You may have seen this also, but from the DVD commentary with Coscarelli and the head writer, he says, in regards to Rip Torn, he came to the film with his own peculiar ideas about how the character was going to be played. He came to me and said, I want to play this role like a turkey vulture. And so Torn ultimately decided to wear his own prosthetic nose. So the reason he has a weird nose is just because Rip Torn wanted the character to have a weird nose.
So you probably don't know the answer to this, but when you say his own prosthetic nose, like the world of questions that a statement like that opens up it's dizzying. Did he always have this prosthetic nose? Is he like trying to justify buying a prosthetic nose before knowing what it would be for, and like talking every director into it, and this is just the one that said fine? Like, what is up with the nose? It was such a weird, confusing element to it, because like, I guess not that weird, but also still weird, because everybody else who's like augmented in this world is like dramatically done so. Like the witches, who have like that whole thing where it's like hot bodies and then like a Halloween mask for a face, you know? Like that's like that made way more sense to me like within this world than like a guy who just has like a slightly more like beak-like nose than he actually does.
What's going on with his teeth too? Like, were those braces?
I think it's supposed to, cause like I don't think his teeth were like that in the beginning of the movie. Pre baby heist, which trust me guys, if you know me, you know I'm gonna get into it with the baby heist. But pre baby heist, he has like, I thought normalish teeth, and then I guess to show the passage of time, like, oh yeah, they don't brush. They're just like kind of grimy.
Speaking of baby heist, Khalid, do you want to just give us a little background on how this movie starts and how the Beastmaster gets his powers?
This movie starts the way a lot of epics start. I'm talking your Harry Potters and what have yous. It goes all the way back to like, what is it, Moses? A real bad dude who has a hankering for following what I can only assume is a very evil and mean god, because like Ra has got to be like a really mean god. Is that the guy's name?
I think so.
That he keeps saying. Or no, it's R because I remember thinking like the kid's name is Dar, their god's name is R. Like
R like a pirate, like R? R.
Yeah, he was like R doesn't want this. Anyways, Rip Torn's character, Mayax, is like this high priest, and he seems to like apparently like it's like this weird tug of war between the king and the religious sect. They don't necessarily work together, but they work in concert with each other. So he like looks into like a giant broth with some witches, and they just turn around and they're like, yo, that king's baby that's coming is gonna kill you. And he's like, we'll see about that. Never let a baby kill me before. So he like sends like the witch assassin into their little hut, which very confusing. Like, do non-kings and queens have like lesser huts? Because that didn't look that great. It looked pretty shabby. But so they go into the unimpressive hut. They paralyze them with some kind of liquid thingy, say some like chant over her very pregnant belly. She starts freaking out. Cut to a cow inside of the hut. I didn't know it was big enough for 2 adults and a cow, to be honest, just looking at it, but apparently it was. That cow starts freaking out. They cut to its udders, so it's like this weird like goes back and forth super fast, and it's like the belly is like moving funny, and it's like very like out of Alien, like the chest burster. And cut back to the cow, and the cow's got the chest burster now, and you're like, oh my god, are they doing what I think they're doing? Yeah, they are. They're transferring the baby to the cow to cut the cow open near a lake later, and a baby's in there. And then see, this is like the convoluted thing about this baby heist. Like trust me, Danny Ocean had no part in this, because there's like so many extra steps to it that like I don't even know like that they know what their ultimate goal was. If it's just to kill the baby, like it's a little crude, but stab the mom maybe? Like the baby can't live without the mom, but they don't do that. They transfer a baby, and then they birth the baby, and then they make a brand, like a little branding iron like that you would use for like animals, and then they brand a baby that they seem to have intentions of killing. And then right when she's about to kill the like freshly branded baby, this dude Tease, he's just like a local, sees her about to like kill a baby, and he's like, well, I know enough to know that's bad. And he grabs like a little like boomerang blade, and he whips it at her and knocks her down. And then they get into a very, very sad to watch fight. Like neither of the actors in it are like fighters, and I don't know that they had a fight choreographer on set because it looked so unimpressive. But he wins. He knocks her out and saves the baby. And that's how the baby heist ends.
Yeah, pretty normal status quo beginning to like any epic, I'd say, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will turn off a movie 25 minutes in if there hasn't been a baby heist.
Yeah. But yeah, so presumably that this interesting transferal of human fetus to cow uterus is what gives birth to Beastmaster's powers, right? I think that's what we're supposed to understand from that.
But it's not okay, but that also doesn't make sense, because the next time we see this dude, he's like 12, and a bear attacks like another villager that they were bullying, and then he just stares at the bear, and the bear walks away, and then Tease, his adoptive father, is like, you must never tell anyone. And I rewound that part like 4 times. I was so confused. I was like, tell anyone what? That you didn't get killed by a bear? Like, he doesn't. It's not like the other scenes in the movie later on where it's like much clearer. Like, I love whenever he has to talk to the hawk because it's the only time he tries to sound like the animal that he's talking to. And it's like just like this like guttural like squeal. He's just like, oh, oh. It is so funny. I'm just like, is that like the bird's request? Like, hey, I know you can telepathically talk to all of us, but like culturally, I wish you would just learn our language. But but yeah, like, I mean, it's confusing. Is it like did he always have the powers? Did they kick in when he was 12? The movie doesn't care. It moves too fast and it keeps going for you to stop and really question any of it. It's only the benefit of hindsight that I can stop and even ask this question.
Yeah. So effectively the Beastmaster is on a quest after his village is raided to stop Rip Torn from doing evil cult-like things and creating a zombie demon army type thing. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much what's happening. I've got a little bit of background on how this movie came to be that I think is interesting just to contextualize where it's coming from. So it's actually based on a novel from Andre Norton, who is a relatively well-known sci-fi author. And the original story tells a story of a character named Hostine Storm, who is a Navajo and former soldier who has an empathic and telepathic connections with a group of genetically altered animals. And Norton's original story is like a sci-fi story where he travels worlds and stuff. And given how different this was, Norton was famously very unhappy with this adaptation of his character.
Yeah, I would be too.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
And maybe it wasn't considered so at the time, but I'm sure now would be seen as fairly problematic that, you know, they take a character that's, you know, a Navajo, a Native American character in the story, and in the book itself is supposed to explore different aspects of Native American culture, specifically the Navajo, through metaphors in the character's life, and then change it to like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I do think that there is like that. The story you're describing sounds like it would have been like a lot more meaningful to like both cinematic and Native American history to have something like that in pop culture at a time like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it is unfortunate that the world like lost out on like what sounds like an equally, if not more, interesting story.
Agreed. It would have been very interesting, and that's also, I mean, there are a few elements of this that would be definitely seen as problematic today. Like when he first meets Tanya Roberts' character, it's a very, very uncomfortable, rapey feeling scene. Like he forces a kiss on her, and it's just
she does not say anything for most of that scene. Like, I don't mean like she says hi and then shuts up. I mean, he says everything up to the point of I guess tricking her into getting a kiss. Okay, so we got to break it down. Like, just to give context, if you're not going to see the movie and you just want to listen to us discuss it, basically because he has the ability to like communicate with animals, he uses like a panther as his wingman. And he convinces the panther to like, and I don't mean convince. I guess he just like asks it mentally. He's just like, scare her and then let me come in and like protect her from you. And then I'm going to demand a kiss for protecting you. And it's very uncomfortable because she does not get a word in until after the kiss, which is, for as all the reasons you can think of, not cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And jumping from that to a little bit more of a gently more positive take of the movie, I did appreciate how after that her character, she wasn't just like relegated to damsel most of the time. She was shown to be relatively capable throughout the movie, and even in the ending fight, like she picked up a sword and like killed several demon soldier people.
She did do that. Yeah,
so I appreciate that element of it, but that does not excuse that part that we're talking about now.
Yeah. I don't know if you needed to hear this, audience, but the official Frankenstein's podcast stance on using a panther as a wingman is don't do it.
Yeah. So real quick before we move into the creature, which we're going to be talking about, Beastmaster does kind of have a storied history in pop culture. It was followed by 2 sequels, Beastmaster 2 Through the Portal of Time, which for some reason brings Dar to early 90s Los Angeles, probably for budget reasons.
Wait,
Yeah.
through time, like implying that this happened in our past?
Presumably, I have not seen 2, to be fair.
Okay, well that changes everything, dude. You did not tell me that this was a historical fiction. I would have given it like a whole different lens to look at it through. All right, go on.
And then Beastmaster 3, The Eye of Braxis, which features Tony Todd, who is kind of a genre legend from Candyman and Star Trek and different things. The other 2 films have a lack of cool creatures. There's a weird swamp witch creature who turns out to be his aunt, I think, in 2. And then there's a lizard god called Braxis that kind of looks like a Power Rangers villain in number 3. So I don't think we're going to address those movies in a future episode, but I guess don't quote me. It also spawned a relatively popular prequel series in 1999 with a new actor as Dar that was kind of like in the Hercules and Xena vein.
I almost like selected that by mistake when I was on Prime because
yeah, that's there too.
Series.
But anyway, the creatures that we're going to be discussing, this movie has no shortage of beasts. Many of them are real. He has a panther, a black tiger companion, the eagle, which I also thought was a hawk until you told me so, and he has 2 little ferrets named Poto and Kodo, which are absolutely adorable.
The highlight of the movie.
Yeah, they're fantastic, but we're not talking about them. We're talking about the Winged Devourers.
Yeah, so they're like these like super tall things. Like they look like their faces look like if like a gas mask like melted on a human face.
It kind of reminds me of like that, like the bad Wolverine. What was it? X-Men Origins. It reminds me of how Deadpool looked in that movie.
Oh yeah, which is funny because like it's all practical effects because this is 82.
Yeah.
So like. Well, not all practical effects. There is one part, which I dare you to even spot it if I didn't tell you, where the eagle picks up a kid that had to have been like some kind of like VFX work there, but everything else is practical. But yeah, it does look like that. If you haven't seen it, X-Men Origins Wolverine, they have Ryan Reynolds at the end, like just look like his face melted off his mouth, and then his eyes are just like raccoon black. It's gross, and that's a pretty good description of the faces on these Winged Devourers. The rest of them is just like leather wings that almost look like trench coat, like they're wearing a trench coat, and then like they open it up and it's like a gross like skinny ribby like I don't know, like it just reminds me of like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer demons and stuff that they would have sometimes, because like they would recycle a lot of those costumes, and so like it's just like skinny naked ugly creatures, and they're like, what are they, like 8 feet tall? They're so tall.
Yeah, they're definitely much taller than people, and they have these large bat wings. And what I thought was really interesting is when we first see them in the movie, Dar is just kind of wandering through the forest and finds a cave, right? And he like finds like a soup with a head in it. Remember that?
Yeah, I like it because he has his like little like is it a you called it a black tiger? Is it a panther? I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
It was a tiger that was actually, I think, dyed black.
Yo, Joe Exotic probably gave it to him, man.
Oof.
But yeah, okay, so the black painted tiger, confusingly enough, why didn't they just use a tiger? All right, I'm gonna move on. The black painted tiger like goes up to like the broth or whatever it is, and like it's like sniffs it, and he's like, I'm not having none of that, because Dar tries to like get it. He's like, check it out, and he's like, no thank you, and then he like pokes at it, and a head comes out. When you see how they eat later, it's like confusing. It's like, you also eat soup that way? Like you care to eat soup?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting thing, because they're objectively terrifying, I think, but there's evidence that there's some sort of intelligence there. They're not just like monsters. They're like, they have a culture. Like they're shown to have some sort of like god icon that's this eagle, which in a moment we'll talk about leads to this sort of respect they form for Dar. But they make soup. They worship,
and they hunt humans.
I'm
just not, yeah, like I'm realizing like in that world, humans, they're not the apex. They're not the top of the food chain. Like these things like come down from a mountain and then like cage them and eat them. They build cages.
Yeah.
It's kind of terrifying. You're right. That's terrifying.
Yeah. So you mentioned briefly the way that they eat. When you see the way that they actually eat, we're not quite sure the relationship between that and the soup ultimately, but when a human is running, so we see Dar release one of the guys from the cages, runs right into the Winged Devourer's arms, opens up the wings, wraps the dude into his wings. Guy like struggles, screams to get out, but of course he's not getting out. And all you see after the creature opens its wings is just bones and goop falling down. So they effectively devour people through their wings.
They show you a little bit of what's going on in there with like the green ooze that spits out. I assume that's got to be like the equivalent of stomach acid. Like that's what's doing the actual dissolving, but like they probably also have like teeth inside there.
So they don't actually have like physical mouths on their face, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they don't.
I found this one. I was searching a lot for research on this, and I found one thing from a guy named Robert Lamb, who did a Monster of the Week column for Tor.com. And he wrote that the Winged Devourers use their wings to capture and hold human prey. Once secured, they vomit a corrosive solvent over the squirming meal's head. This is a form of external digestion, which you've also seen in spiders and the housefly.
Dang.
Yeah,
that's gross.
Kind of fascinating, though.
Yeah, fascinatingly gross. Not like I hate it. Like
yeah.
I'm just like, like it's like, ooh, cool. That's so gross.
Yeah. So there's actually two scenes in which we see these Winged Devourers. So first, as we're talking about, Dar comes across these creatures in this random cave. It's a weird scene because it's just random. Like it doesn't really serve the plot that much at that point, but it's kind of reflective.
Yeah, isn't he like he's like in pursuit of the girl at that point because like she understandably not a great first impression from Dar. So she dips out. Yeah. Also, she's a slave, so I think she was going back to be a slave. Which I don't know. Like I guess slaves in that world get field trips to a spring, but she disappears, and then like in pursuit of her, that's how he ends up at that cave.
Yeah, and as I was gonna say, that's kind of reflective of the fantasy genre and how that's different from sci-fi. Sometimes is that the plot is like peppered with obstacles rather than specific events that serve the greater plot. And so this kind of, it's like that, where it's like he just runs into a series of obstacles until he gets to his final goal. But they do appear again in another scene at the very end. And so, and this is when we're getting into way spoiler territory. So this is an interesting movie because the final battle happens. Dar fights Rip Torn. Ferret helps attack one of the ferrets, I don't know, Kodo or Poto, I don't know which one it was, helps...
It was Kodo. Should throw some respect on his name.
Yeah, you're right. It's Kodo. Kodo, like, eats Rip Torn's neck, and, like, Rip Torn dies, right? Or Mayak, sorry. And the movie goes on for another 30 minutes after that.
Yeah. Yeah, which is very interesting. Like, if I was Mayax, I'd be actually, like, a little bit, like, salty about that, where it's like... Oh, I thought those guys were like ride or die for me, but sounds like the world just keeps turning when I die. But that's exactly what happens.
Yeah. So effectively, the like sort of demon soldier minions that Rip Torn had created, I think is the right word, were marching on this city. And after Rip Torn dies, they still continue that march, so that they have to try to defend the city. And and they don't have much of an army. Tiny town, although it's a kingdom, I think. I don't know. It's not clear the scope of things sometimes. But effectively, Dar had formed a bond with these Winged Devourers in that cave scene because he was able to control the eagle. And since they worship some sort of eagle figure that we see in some iconography that's in in their cave, they formed a respect with them. So he used like a pendant that they gave him, and he gave it to his eagle to go bring to them. And then the eagle basically leads the Winged Devourers back. And after a pretty cool shot battle overall, the Winged Devourers show up and just start devouring the enemy soldiers in a way that I think really shows Coscarelli's skill as a horror director. Because I feel like it doesn't feel triumphant. They're all backing away like, what did we just do?
Well, that's the thing that, like, really, like, again, like, we both keep saying they're terrifying, and it's more of a conceptually terrifying thing because these monsters don't have to fight you. They don't have moves. You don't have a move. Like, they just spread open and like bear hug you to death, more or less. And it's just like the things that at the end when they're kind of like used as a Deus ex machina, where it's like there's no way that our heroes can get out, and then these things show up. The things they're fighting, the Juns, are like the movie does a good job of underscoring like they're way stronger than humans, and that like nothing can stop them, and they're unrelenting. And then boom, the Winged Devourers come in, and it's like, you're relenting now, aren't you, boy?
Yeah, it's intense. Like it's actually I think the final 30 minutes gets a lot of criticisms because it just feels like it extends the movie after you feel like it would have logically ended. But I kind of liked those last scenes.
Yeah, because like a lot of movies, they really do just make it about the main villains. So I mean, really, like, I don't know how much credit we should give them. Like, all they did was just flip it around, where it's like in any other movie, it's just you defeat all the bad guys, and then when the hero is like at his weakest from defeating all the bad guys, he has to go up against the big bad. This time around, they just like he was just relatively fine, and he beat him.
And I'm just reminded of this now that we're talking about that final scene, because it was a pretty cool moment for a lot of the main characters. Like, everyone got some pretty cool fight moments. Before we started this podcast, you and I were talking, Khalid, about some of the characters, and you had a lot to say about John Amos's character. Is there anything you wanted to share about that?
Whew, glad you asked. In all my years on this earth, I have seen a lot, done a lot, met a lot of great folks, never met a black guy named Seth. And I did not think the first time I would see one was in a sword and sandals epic about a man who can talk to animals and fights like monsters. So that was wild. I was like, cool, we got Dar, we got Mayax, we got Kiri, we got Tal, and Seth. So that was great. And I really hope, because like John Amos looks like a dude that like is very self-serious and like can side-eye you and stuff like that if he doesn't like something. And I really want to believe they gave him like a very like fantasy epic style name, and he just went, no, I'm gonna be Seth.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the creatures. A few logistical things I found. It was very difficult to actually find real information on who did the VFX for this movie. I struggled. I found on IMDb there was a company called Cruise and Company, which I don't know much else about. Production designer was Conrad Angone, I think his name was. And they didn't say much about the creation or the conception of the creatures. There was a little bit on a documentary that's on the Blu-ray called The Saga of the Beastmaster, where they say that they just kind of wanted to create something otherworldly and gross. That was sort of Coscarelli's take on it. He's like, I just wanted something weird and gross and otherworldly to fill that role. But not much else is said. So Khalid, you know what I did? I actually went into a bit of a deep dive here and did some research trying to figure out if there's anything that these creatures might have been inspired by. And this is the point where I'm getting to pure, unabashed speculation. But I found this kind of interesting thing, and I'm wondering if it's related, because the original Beastmaster the book version was based on a Native American character. There is a legendary dragon bird petroglyph that was found on a bluff along the Mississippi River in Illinois a long time ago, called the Piasa bird. And it's said in legend to apparently be 16 feet, covered with scales, has a bear-like face. That's a different thing. But it has a preference for human meat and can carry a deer off in its talons. And that was the closest kind of thing in legend that I felt sort of almost kind of reminded me of these creatures. And I don't know if that had any effect in whoever designed them or whoever like conceptualized them. But I thought that was kind of I thought it was kind of interesting.
I'm going to say that is officially canon, if only to give the Native Americans any kind of credit for this creation.
That's sort of what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that because it brings them back into the fold. Yeah, it is a bummer now that I know this, because like the whole time I'm watching it, the whole like there is something like there's a spiritual like oneness with nature and like uh a very culturally specific thing to the whole talking to animals thing that I don't associate with like white or European cultures. So it makes so much more sense that like this was all coming from somebody who should have been Native American.
Right, and that petroglyph has since been destroyed, unfortunately. But there is a modern day reproduction of it that is now a monument in Alton, Illinois. If you all want to go see it, so that's kind of cool. Is Dar a vegetarian? Do you think?
It's funny you should ask that because I'm looking at I've got a page of trivia, and the one I'm looking at right now is that that was one of the things that the producers and director were trying to figure out when they shot that, because they show a scene of him eating a meal, but they never specify what's in the meal, and it's like they go, "Geez, shouldn't the Beastmaster be a vegetarian?" And I think he should.
Agreed, 100%.
If you could have a conversation, or like at the very least like intuitively like understand another animal that much, like you shouldn't be eating animals.
Yeah.
And I don't only say that because I am a vegetarian too. I just think that should be a bare minimum. Like if you can like verifiably point to like consciousness and understanding, like don't eat that thing.
Right, a bare minimum. And speaking of bears, Khalid.
Oh, you took the bait. You took the bait.
Good segue, huh?
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, if this happens to be your first episode of the podcast, we are, or I specifically, am going to be implementing the 4 bears test for as long as I feel like it. And essentially, it's just a question of, could the monster that we're talking about in the story or movie, could it be replaced with 4 bears and still be the same movie? This is the first time I'm going to have to give it a big old fail. It fails the 4 bears test. For one, these creatures seem to be a lot more intelligent. For another, they're like, there's a bunch of them for the whole, like they're only in 2 scenes, but each time it's a bunch of them. Way more than 4 bears, like even if you stack them up against each other. So just on a numbers level, it fails. They also seem to respect the Beastmaster, which, in my opinion, if you're 4 bears, you don't respect anything other than maybe 5 bears. So yeah, for that and a litany of other very like obvious reasons, like no, this movie does, like the entire third act falls apart if you're just waiting for 4 bears to come in. Those guys are like super soldiers. They'd probably just like like behead the bears. The only reason that the Winged Devourers get them is because they have like the ultimate KO move of just like hug you and like dissolve you. You can't fight back if you're already being dissolved within the first move.
Yeah, and they fly.
Oh, they do fly. Yes, they do fly. And as we all know, 4 bears can't fly.
So ultimately, these creatures, they're very fascinating. They're very different than the other creatures that we've talked on the podcast so far, talked about on the podcast so far. We started with the host creature. We talked about the aliens from Attack the Block. And then these ones are very different. This is a very different kind of movie and very different monsters. They're intelligent for one. It's just a different...
Well, this is the first monster that is benevolent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nobody, like it's not there's at no point does anybody go, can we kill them? Can we defeat them? I don't think that that's possible, at least by the rules of this movie.
Yeah, they have a code. They have a culture that we're presented with, like just gently. So it's left to more of our imagination to figure out and fill in those pieces. But my question then for you, Khalid, is in the case of the Winged Devourers, would you fight them or flirt with them?
Very good question. I have been thinking about it very, very hard, and I have to say, I have to flirt with them. The metrics for which I'm going to do the fight or flirt, like I'm still figuring it out, but like I think I at least have to respect the rules of like the movie or source that they come from. And within this, like they don't show anybody fighting them. And again, they're super tall. I have no choice but to try and flirt with them, because if I have to fight them, man, like I saw a bunch of them, like, a bunch of those people get eaten even just being in their vicinity, and that looked so unpleasant. And it's gonna be hard, because when you talk about flirting with these creatures, like the presumption is that like you're gonna have to like at least physically be like in contact with them at some point. And like, how do I do that when like their entire torso is a mouth? You know what I mean? I can't even spoon them without worrying that I'm gonna end up in their gullet. And I'll figure it out. I'll figure the logistics out. But fighting them is just off the table. It's not even a question of like what I choose. It's like these are dominant creatures in their land, and I have to respect that. And I guess I will bring them as many eagles as it takes to let them know that I am open to a relationship.
So the verdict is
Flirt them.
And with that, Khalid, I think we're gonna wrap up our conversation on the ultimate the Beastmaster.
It is the ultimate Beastmaster. Oh man, no, this was a fun one, man, and yeah, this is the first time that it's been a movie or pop culture source that I didn't know anything about beforehand. So thank you for bringing it to me, man. This is really fun to watch and discuss.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was fun. I've watched this movie a few times now. It was something I'd seen bits and pieces of growing up, and so it's something that I always kind of knew about, but I never really sat down and watched it fully until just recently. So it was a fun experience, I think. And problematic elements aside, it is still a fun movie to watch overall, I'd say. So next week we're going to be talking about another monster/creature that's another hard left turn. I think a very different type of one. Khalid, do you want to tell our listeners what we'll be talking about next week?
Yeah, for a creature feature podcast, this will be our first foray into outright horror. As if I'm remembering correctly, but yeah, we're going to be talking about the creature from It Follows, which also doesn't actually have a name. I guess we'll just call it. We can't call it It. There's already an It.
So the internet has called it The Entity.
The Entity. I like that. So we'll be discussing The Entity, which if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend it just for your own benefit, but that's what we'll be discussing on the next episode. And I'm very excited. That movie really stuck with me after I watched it, and it's going to be a fun one to discuss, especially with the fight or flirt element.
Wow, I didn't even think about that yet.
Yeah, I actually have a theory on that one, which might just like blow open the entire fight or flirt like modality.
I guess tune in next time for a game changer of an episode.
Yeah, and can I just plug something real quick, Joe?
I was just about to go there, Khalid. Where can we find you, and what do you want to plug?
So you can find me. Instagram's the place to go. It's nappy_Gilmore_, spelled how it sounds. And yeah, I mean, not much new stuff there. I'm just doing my thing. But the thing I really want to plug, I have nothing to do with it, but because it's the quarantine for us, depending on when you're listening, like we're still going through it. I've been watching a lot of shows that I didn't really have the chance to before, and the show I want to plug is it's called What We Do in the Shadows, based off of the movie that Taika Waititi directed, and it was turned into a show for FX, which is now streaming all of their shows on Hulu, and it is a delight. I'm all caught up now, and the latest episode as of this recording was an episode which reminds me of the golden age of The Simpsons so hard, like pretty much like certain plot elements of it are lifted wholesale from a Simpsons episode or two, and not in a bad way. Like if you like creature feature stuff and you like vampires and you like comedy and all of that, this show has all of that and more, and it's such a delight to watch every week. And yeah, give it a shot. It's great.
Agreed. We haven't watched season 2 yet, any of it, but I loved season 1. That is such a great show. So I will hop on that recommendation.
Nice. And where can people find you and follow you?
You can find me on Twitter at Joe Praska, so just my name spelled out. And one of the things I've been working on lately, other than just normal quarantine life work, is I've been dusting off my old blog site. I haven't used it for a long time, but I write just kind of my own stuff. It's called thecontinuingvoyage.com. A lot of it's Star Trek related, so if you're a Star Trek fan, come on over. But I have some other stuff too. It's a fun endeavor for me, and if you're interested, feel free to check it out. You can also find Frankenstein's podcast. Like us on Facebook. Find us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is Franken Podcast for all the updates and links to the episodes.
It sounds like we do a podcast about Al Franken.
I know. It was hard to find a good Twitter handle.
I guess so.
Until next time, folks.
Creep it easy.